So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. This is going to be another exciting session from CRMCOE. So this is one of the topics that is very near and dear to me. We are all in it together, especially when it comes to Salesforce ecosystem. Many people in the ecosystem have been working for many, many years. So the average, I think, anywhere between 7 and 8 years of experienced people in Salesforce. Can you believe Salesforce started in 1999? It's almost 22 years. So today, we will be focused on mentoring for CRM professionals, specifically on the Salesforce side. And I just wanted to thank our panelists for joining us. We have two distinguished guests for us, and I'm humbled and honored to welcome them to our program. And we have two leaders, Ian Gotts from Elements Cloud and Blanca Leon Carter from Salesforce Communities. She's well known here in Chicago. She's an MVP and she does a lot of other stuff. So she will introduce herself. Ian, and I'm your host and the moderator, Velu Palani. I lead the CRMCOE, and I also work for a company here in Chicago, Healthcare Services Corporation. It's a healthcare payer company. We are one of the largest insurance companies in the country. So having said that, I would like to invite Ian to introduce himself and then Blanca.
So hi there. Thank you for joining the call. Like Velu, I'm passionate about helping everyone else in the ecosystem grow as much as possible. So a bit of history, I've been a Salesforce customer and partner, or a customer for 20 years. So we've seen Salesforce grow from, well, when they sold it to us, it was two guys in a Regis office in London. I remember I presented at the first ever London event, which was 120 people, 3 customers and Mark, and that was it. I was one of those customers. So it's been a fantastic journey, huge, I think like 11 million people are now part of the ecosystem. So Elements.Cloud, we're passionate about helping people do a better job, sort of in terms of driving excellence. So we're trying to get rid of all those spreadsheets and documents. So we're the platform for driving all the change around Salesforce. So everything from user requirements, user stories, business process maps, and then an understanding about the org. But less about the product today. This is all about actually how we can help all of you grow.
Thank you, Ian. Blanca?
Yeah, hi, my name is Blanca Leon Carter. I'm based out of Chicago, Illinois, and I have been in the Salesforce ecosystem. I started off as a customer with a nonprofit organization back at the tail end of 2012, beginning of 2013, and fast forward a few years, I decided, okay, I don't want to just be a lurker on the success community, reading everyone's answers and questions and how they're solving things. I want to get a little bit more engaged, and I actually became one of the learners of the Rad Women program. And Rad Women actually trains advanced admins who have 2 years experience to learn how to code Apex for Salesforce. And through that journey, I just got activated with the community in a way that mentorship is kind of embedded in the DNA, right? So I'm really excited to be here today to talk about this topic.
Very good. Thank you, Blanca. Before we get started, we have gone through a pandemic period. We have so many parts of the world are experiencing the pandemic. And at least in the US, we are slowly coming out of the clutch. And I wanted to ask you, Blanca, what is that one thing that you are grateful for today?
Oh, one thing I will say, it's not actually one, but you maybe will consider it one. But it's family, and in turn, with our Trailblazer community, it's Ohana. It's how we relate to one another and support one another. It's a reminder that humanity has a lot of good in us.
Thank you, Blanca. What about you, Ian?
I'd say technology, and it's actually for the same reason Blanca said people, which is without the levels of technology we've now got, we couldn't stay in touch with family. Obviously, I'm British, but I live in San Francisco. I haven't seen my parents for a year and a half, but actually I see them several times a week because of the power of they've got iPhones, they've got FaceTime, there's technology there. We're able to build businesses and stay connected. It's not the same as having a hug, I get that, but technology has actually enabled us to try and stay in touch, which we never would have been able to do 3, 4, even 5 years ago.
I totally agree with you, and I am really thankful for everything. But if I have to say one thing, I agree with both of you. Family is the key for us. To get through the pandemic, I think the family helped us quite a bit to go through what we all went through, and many parts of the world are still going through it. Our hearts and prayers are with them, and we want to make sure that everybody comes out of that lockdown and start traveling or start meeting people. I'm excited to go back to work. I've been asked to come back to work next month, and I really want to go and see people. Unfortunately, in my office, we are not going to see a lot of people. Very few people in a very tall building. So it's just, but still better than and staying home. So let's get started with our program. So today we will talk about the state of Salesforce professionals. Where are we? 22 years into the business. We'll quickly go through the state of current Salesforce ecosystem in terms of supply and demand. We will also talk about the need for mentoring. And we have Ian and Blanca, very seasoned experts in the field. We want to hear from them, and I want to share my thoughts and experience. And I've been working with the ecosystem for about 20 years. I still feel that I'm trying to get a handle on it, and I don't know whether I will ever have a handle on it. So we'll talk about the need for mentoring, and we will talk about, if you talk about mentoring, there are two parties you need, the mentor and mentee. So if you are a mentee, you need to be ready for receiving that knowledge and the experience and the competency, the skills, experience the mentor has. So we'll talk about the mentee and mentor, what to look for. And we will also slowly introduce the mentoring framework so people start thinking about going, if at all you want to grow and you want to put together a framework, we will share that with you. And finally, if I'm pretty sure the ecosystem is pretty conducive to help your career grow, whether with or without anybody's help. So we will share with you how to begin your journey. And finally, we will have a Q&A. So those who are listening to this discussion, please keep your questions till the end of this. We will take your questions if you have any, and we will answer the questions. If not, we will come back to you with answers. So having said that, let's get to the point here. Here is the state of Salesforce Professional 2020. The global supply, this is, there is an organization called 10K Advisors. They put together a report every year for the last 3 years. So if you think about the supply, the talent in 2020 grew about 29%, but the growth is 21%, 29%, but it actually compared to 2019, it went down significantly. So what does this mean for us? Does this mean that we are going to have a lot of job opportunities? We will talk about that. Okay, all right, so let's go back. So if you think about the growth in technical architect space, it went up, and overall demand was down year over year. So we will discuss this quite a bit. A developer's demand grew by 23% year over year. Good diversity across all the regions and roles, gender pay disparity remains an issue for independent consultants. So, Blanca, Ariane, when you read this one, what comes to your mind? What's your thought right away when you look at this state of Salesforce professionals?
So let me go first then. I mean, we've seen Salesforce grow in complexity, grow in the size, the scope, and the scale of the particular projects. So I think, and also you can see that Salesforce is clearly targeting larger and larger organizations. So that means that the demand is going to be for more and more experienced people. So even if we see a drop necessarily in the overall demand, I think the quality of the people, the seniority of the people that are being asked for in the marketplace is going up. I think we also see that with a lot of people who are coming into the market new and saying, I'm a new admin, can I have a job? Where do I find a job? I think what we're finding is that the bar for entry-level jobs is going up, but therefore that means that everybody is being moved up, which is why the middle tier of people who've got experience, they need to, again, grow their experience and be able to step up as leaders, because that's what the employers are now demanding.
Yeah, and I'll just speak as the VP of Community Engagement for Rad Women. You know, one of the things that we look at are those gender and diversity gap ratios in tech, right? Overall, not just within the Salesforce ecosystem, but globally, the ratios when you think about women and minority group, there's not enough representation in tech. And I think that disparity will still remain there. And that's why we need programs to help with, you know, providing mentorship to people who need some support to transition, you know, whether it may be from admin to admin developer or developer, or maybe even, you know, from developer to technical architect.
I hear you. And there was a question when I looked at this one. I said when I wanted to talk to my leadership and say we want to hire people, and I was giving them the statistics. One of the questions was asked: if the demand was down, and this does that mean that we can hire more people faster? So there was a 2019 report I looked at, and there was a research that I asked, someone helped me to do a research on 2019 10K report. So there is every 6 jobs, there is only one qualified Salesforce architect available. So if you, if you ask the hiring managers, the biggest challenge is hiring the Salesforce technical architect. So as you said, Blanca, there is still a lot of demand. Even though when you see the supply is down, it doesn't mean that there is a lot of people available. If I understand correctly, Ian, I'm not sure whether you face this situation here, the Salesforce employment or unemployment for developers and architects, this high skilled area, it's been negative for the last couple of years. Have you noticed, any of you noticed that one in terms of people availability, looking for jobs, they're unable to find jobs? Anyone, have you come across?
I think at the bottom level, people are struggling to find jobs in terms of where they have limited experience. The get to trailhead badges. I mean, like Blanca, I ran the local user group here, and lots of people would come to me saying, I've seen that if I get a couple of trailhead badges, I can get a job, and that clearly isn't the case. And so yeah, trailhead is helps you wet you in terms of what's happening, but then it's about certifications, and then it's about experience. So I think at the bottom end, it's more difficult finding a job. I think at the top end, there is a good architect can command an excellent salary. Good business analysts, good developers can. And you also got to bear in mind, it's not just clients who are chasing these people. Salesforce are hiring these people, and the consulting firms are hiring these people. So it's not just one group of people who's out there trying to hire.
I see the same thing, and if you look at the report more and more, there is I think more than 60% of the workforce is employed by the Salesforce and the consulting firms. And then the rest of the workforce is managed, employed by the rest of the world. So that is an interesting thing. So if you think about the demand versus supply, so for 2020, the demand on the left side, for North America, it has been down. It's minus 32%. If you, what it shows here, Salesforce is truly a global ecosystem, right? It's not only for the US or North America or India or Europe. So if you look at the supply here, and the supply on the right side, demand on the left side, South America, the demand is 89%, whereas North America is minus 32%. And Africa has been the highest demand you see for in 2020. And on the other side, if you look at the supply for it's pretty consistent. There is no negative supply. It's been there. But if you compare supply for 2019 to 2020, it's been huge downfall, the supply as well as the demand. I assume it's a major reason would be pandemic. Um, um, Blanca, do you see any other reason why there is a huge dip in the demand and the supply?
I think some of it is definitely a ripple effect of the pandemic. And in the sense that if your company was hit hard, right, and they happen to use Salesforce, then they may have made some cuts and put you out of a job, right? I think it also depends on where in the world you're at and what kind of support systems are there, right? Are there fewer companies that are using Salesforce, or are there more, but you just happen not to be at a company that's global? Maybe you're at a local company, and therefore, when things crisis hit, then in turn your company's hit, and so are you. I think the other half is probably relating to access, right? Access to resources to grow in these areas, and access to bring programming in to support companies to implement and adopt, Salesforce in the way that it would better serve their constituencies.
I agree with you. And Ian, is that trend in your experience working with your clients, the knowledge that you are gaining from the industry, or even looking at the journals, do you think the 2021 will be pre-pandemic level? Is there any place that you've read any kind of information that supply will be more, demand will be more in 2021?
I definitely see that there's a renewed investment in Salesforce, and I think people, as Blanca said, maybe cut back or they delayed hiring decisions last year, but I think that will bounce back. But I think the other thing that's interesting is that you've got a geographic picture here, and now we've proven that geography actually doesn't make that much difference. And I'm based in San Francisco. We've got a team based all over the US. We've got a European team. Our development is done in the Ukraine. Suddenly, the idea of saying is demand up or down in a particular country is less relevant, as we've all proven that whilst we do like to meet people, a lot of jobs can be done remotely. So maybe there's a little bit of that hidden in the figures as well.
I hear you, but that's an excellent point, Ian. But pre-pandemic, companies wanted people to be geographically, you need to be in the US, you need to be working in the office. The new normal, people are going to be working elsewhere, or it could be anywhere. You can work from any parts of the country or any parts of the world, supporting what you need to support to meet the business objectives. So when I look at this one, the supply seem to be pretty steady across the board, whereas the demand seem to be fluctuating. Does this mean what is the I'm very intrigued by looking at the demand in Africa. Does that mean there are people working in Africa supporting the rest of the world? Is that what it means? Or even Salesforce is selling more licenses in Africa to support their local customers?
I mean, again, we've got business in Africa, but actually the majority of the business is in South Africa rather than the rest of sub-Saharan Africa. That's the number that seems very strange when it clearly came out of the data that you collected. I don't have any clear picture in terms of why that number would be so high in terms of demand, or maybe it's Salesforce is only just getting into that market, and again, that's why it's suddenly driven a peak in demand.
I hear you. So is there anything else jumps out of your mind, Blanca, when we look at this demand and supply and the state of Salesforce professionals?
Yeah, there's one specific bullet on here. The developers demand grew by 23%, right, year over year. At Rad Women, we have anywhere from 100 women who are trained in a given 10-week, by various coach mentors. And I will tell you that there is definitely an abundance of people who are signing up to learn how to code, to try to figure out how to transition into more technical roles like being a Salesforce developer, whether it's a junior level or whether it's a developer level, or sometimes it's actually trying to skill up to work better with those developers, right? And we have a wait list every cohort. There's no doubt about it. So, we simply just don't have enough coach mentors. We're grateful for the ones that we have because they volunteer so much time and expertise. But clearly there is a lot more demand than we can meet right now. The other thing that I am interested in that I don't see in this state of Salesforce professionals, when we look at what the pandemic has done, there are a series of reports that have been put together that state that a lot of times the women are the ones who end up staying working from home because the children can't go to daycare and schools anymore. And, I'd be curious to see what the implications are from the percentage of women that are having to drop out of the workforce, because of the times that we are in right now.
I agree with you. I think the report, especially, I think most of the countries where women are the most affected, I don't think it is. I think it's not even by choice. I think it's by force that they have to stay home to take care of the children, and the aging parents is a big one, and healthcare in many parts of the world have been under very, very big stress. So where they have to take care of the people at home. So let's move on to the next topic. So the need for mentoring. I think when you look at the state of Salesforce, so the book that I read long time ago, it's called the World is Flat. I'm sure you all heard of the World is Flat book, Thomas Friedman. So when you look at the demand and supply, Salesforce is all over the map, literally all over the map. The people are working from different parts of the world, whether they serve the local customers or the employers or the companies, or they support elsewhere, sitting in Africa, supporting the company in the US, UK, or wherever it is. In my opinion, the need for mentoring is it's so important, and it's very critical for somebody's success. So I'm just going to jump, Ian. You've been in the ecosystem for many, many years. Why now the need for mentoring?
Again, I'm not sure it's the need is now. I think the need has always been there, but I think the pressure is now building on people. If you go to Dreamforce, you leave with your head spinning. I mean, it's we're just about to come TDX, Trailhead DX. There'll be announcements of more products. They're doubling down on industries. There are new ISVs entering the market. There are new, obviously, enhancements to the product. So Salesforce as a platform is becoming more and more comprehensive. It covers more and more of the business areas, whether it's sort of sales, service, but you can build anything. And I think you put skills erosion. It's almost like there's almost overwhelm. And before, when it was relatively small, you could know Salesforce. You could know how to implement. So you said I can implement Salesforce, and people knew what that meant. Now, if I said I can implement Salesforce, you need 14 other qualifying questions. It's like going to Starbucks. You can't just order coffee. There's a whole bunch of other questions. So yeah, you can implement Salesforce, but what does that mean? Is it sales? Is it CPQ? What industry is it in? What size company? Is it a non-profit? So suddenly it's got a lot more complicated. So I think the need for mentoring has not helped me gain my skills, but it's actually helped me find my path, work out what I want to do and where I want to specialize.
Oh, I can totally understand. Blanca, when you are talking to your colleagues and the community that you volunteer, in terms of mentoring, so there is a lot of opportunity for people who are coming into the Salesforce ecosystem. Is there, the experienced people, they're all working, they're happy, they get paid a little bit more than the other industry. In your perspective, why the experienced people should be thinking about having the right mentors or even having a mentoring framework or a system for their growth? What's your perspective?
Yeah, I think there's a few different points here, right? It's definitely easier if you're fresh, brand new, just started on Trailhead and you're looking for a mentor. There's an abundance of, programs and organizations, and even Trailhead has its own program to pair you up with a mentor. I think when you're, a mid-career mentee searching for a mentor, sometimes you don't really know exactly where you want to pivot, right? Sometimes maybe you're comfortable in the position that you've been with the company that you've been with for several years, and maybe there hasn't been a need for you to think about, what is the next phase going to be? Am I going to stay in this role? Do I want to try to venture out into something else? And so sometimes I think it's just that you're not forced at hand, right, to have to pivot into a new career transition. And so maybe you haven't thought of seeking out a mentor. But I do believe that everyone should always be looking for better opportunities, right? Even when you think you're at the best place, you never know, there may be something that makes you more happier, right? And then I think that there's a level of folks who are, in their mid-level career, and maybe they haven't been presented with the right people at their company that are supporting them to transition. Maybe they're secretly voicing, I'd like to, start diving into this kind of area of growth, and maybe there's not enough professional development support. And that's one of the reasons why I decided I wanted to go into consulting, is because I wanted to make sure that, look, I understand I'm a lifelong learner. It's a part of me and how I am and what makes me happy, right? It's not just a professional thing, it's a personal thing of me. I just like to always be learning. And in that sense, I think that mid-career, I had to pivot, right? I had been with the company for over 20 years and I was worried, am I gonna be relevant, right? Are my skills relevant? Can I transition from nonprofit into a corporate world? And I found myself in need of a mentor. The other thing is that I'll add that when I first started learning with Rad Women, I hadn't ever in my life had a mentor that was Latina, right? Who looked like me, had similar background, that we can relate, on different ethnic and just being a mom and, these different characteristics that make us who we are, right? I had some mentors when I was young, but they were male Caucasians. And so sometimes that need to be able to see people who look like you and have similar experiences make it into these higher, more technical roles. Or, it's like watching basketball, right? If the young guys watch a lot of basketball and they see a lot of Latinos and African Americans playing ball, they're like, oh yeah, I can be a basketball player when I grow up. For me, it was rare because I didn't really have any Latina women. I had 0 people in my family, and my mom has 5 sisters. So no one was into computers in the way that I was. So I think that's another gap of, why someone would need a mentor, no matter where they are on their journey, whether it's the beginning, middle, or well into their careers.
I
I
mean,
I hear
one
you. Go ahead, Ian. I would like to get more perspective from you.
to, Blanca said, I think people say, okay, you may be happy where you are. I don't think that exists anymore. If you stay where you are, Salesforce will accelerate away from you, and you will find yourself in a position where back to skills erosion. So when I was at Accenture, the deal was you got promoted or sacked every year. Okay, there was only moving forward. Okay, it was very clear that we wanted you to become a partner. So you went through manager, and therefore that was the career path. And maybe that's changed a little bit now, but there was an expectation that you need to go and grow. Fine, that's different. In the Salesforce world, there's an expectation, which is Salesforce is just going to keep on producing more stuff, and therefore you can't stay in one position. So the other perspective that came out of Accenture was, within the first 2 or 3 years, you could probably be a generalist. You were IT related. It didn't matter which industry you worked in. But by year 3, if you hadn't shown the industry you'd worked in for the previous 2 or 3 years was the industry you would work in for the rest of your career inside Accenture. Switching careers is quite hard. And when I came out of the manufacturing industry, aerospace and defense, and they don't make rockets and bombs in central London, so it meant I spent my whole time on an airplane or on a train somewhere. But because 3 years in, I didn't get into banking and insurance, which happened in the city, which meant if you hadn't made the shift into an industry in the first 3 years, that was the path that you ended up taking. And I think increasingly, as Salesforce focuses more and more and doubles down on industry, people are going to have to pick an industry. You can't go, oh yeah, I absolutely know how Salesforce works in healthcare. Right, what's the next client? Oh, the next client's manufacturing. Health cloud is not the same as manufacturing cloud. So this industry specialization will be forced on us.
I hear you, and I also want to pick. I want to give 2 minutes on my experience on Salesforce. I started my journey with Salesforce in 2000, so it's about 21 years. That seems to be eternity. That's how I feel. Like 21 years. If I tell people, maybe you're a legacy guy, you are a mainframe guy, you don't know Salesforce. That's how I feel, even though I have several certifications. I continue to learn. I make it a point, at least I do a couple of badges in a week, and I pick a particular industry. I'm in a healthcare. What I have noticed here in the last quarter, I had the fortune to hire about 10 people in architects, and helped interview developers and BAs and product managers, and then even administrators. What I've noticed that people who have a lot of experience, they are smart, but what they are lacking is the current what's happening within the Salesforce ecosystem. So as you know, Salesforce releases 3 times a year. And if you are so busy in working and producing stories and managing and administering your environment, how many of us even have time to go and look at the 600-page release notes that Salesforce put out? Because you're so busy in building solution, and you especially in agile world, you don't have time. You just have to keep producing it. Otherwise, the train is moving. So my experience when I started several years ago, I've seen, as Ian said, there were, I don't know whether you remember, Ian, there was, if you knew Sales Cloud, that was a big you are like a very competitive advantage compared to other people. Then Salesforce introduced Service Cloud. Oh, Service Cloud. Oh, yeah, Service Cloud is better paying job than the Sales Cloud. So people started learning CTI and all kinds of things. And now all of a sudden, Salesforce started introducing a lot of clouds. Last couple of years, adding to Ian's point, the industry is becoming more and more. So it makes a lot more sense when I speak with business leaders. They don't care about sales or service terminology, accounts, opportunities, CTI, knowledge, SLAs. They don't care. Can you speak their language? If you're in a healthcare, what is stopping them to grow? What is stopping them? What's keeping them up night? So in order for us, the need for mentoring is so important, because if you're a technical person, you will be so immersed in everyday working and producing. I think the need is, as you said, Ian, it's not now, it's been there forever. And I personally see that there is a demand for mentoring, so that you continue to grow. You don't need to be stuck in your current job. In my opinion, if you don't have, if you are not keeping up to the trend, you will become a legacy developer. Even though you're a Salesforce developer, you will be a Salesforce legacy developer. So let's move on to the next. So we talked about a need for mentoring. I think that's a 2-day topic. I don't think it's a 1 hour or 25 minutes topic. So if you are a mentee, if you're a Salesforce professional, there is these are the characteristics that I put in. Um, so so Ian, if I'm the mentee, if I come to you and say, Ian, help me to be a mentor, when you see this one, what comes to your mind in terms of what else do you think we should have as a mentee? Or even if you want to give us within this, whatever the 5 points that we put together, what's your perspective and what's your advice for mentees?
Well, I think the first thing is that we're not talking about people who are entering the ecosystem. So this discussion is all about someone who's mid-career, 2-3+ years in.
Right.
So you should have enough experience, both functional and technical experience, so you can start to see a path. It's not you're sitting at the very beginning going, I could go anywhere. You need to basically lean on the past experience. Like, where have you worked? What experience have you got in terms of sales cloud? What experience have you got outside of the Salesforce world? Because that will start directing the future. Back to my story in Accenture, I had multiple years in aerospace and defense. I remember I went to a banking client. I didn't even know what they were talking about. The words they were using in the sentences, I just didn't understand. What's a CDO? All that terminology just didn't make sense. So I think if you're a couple of years of experience into Salesforce and in working, that will set a path forward. That's the first thing. The second thing is you genuinely want to grow your career. I mean, this is self-directed. This is not a mentor saying, I've set a bunch of tasks for you to do. A mentor is a coach, not the manager. So therefore, the mentee needs to understand, it's self-directed energy to move, take that career path and then run with it.
I hear you, Ian. So Blanca, when you are a mentor, you are a mentee, and you made a statement that you are a lifelong learner. So if someone comes to you and say, if you go to somebody as a mentee, what other aspects that you not expect, what other areas that you think that you need to be ready as a mentee before you start saying that I need some help as from a mentor or a mentoring system?
Yeah, so currently I am a mentee, right? I'm learning more about DevOps. And so I'm partnered with a fabulous mentor who's helping me on this learning journey. And on the flip side, I also am a mentor, in the sense to another person who is a recent Salesforce MVP. And I think, one of the key things that I understand about mentee and mentor relationships is that it needs to be reciprocal, right? It's a two-way street. The mentee brings things and gets things from it, and so does the mentor, right? The mentor may be sharing experiences, helping to ask you the right questions so that you can figure out, yes, I am on the right path, or, oh, why didn't I think about that question before? Maybe I just was too stuck in work and so busy that I never really took my head to lift up and take a step back and think about it for myself in that way, right? So I think a mentee really needs to have that sense of self-awareness, right? I'm continuously assessing, where am I at? Where do I want to be? Where on the trajectory that I saw for myself 1 year ago, where does that look like now? I think that assessing and understanding, like, who else do I have in my network who can help me with this gap area that I think I have, right? Self-awareness is definitely key, and being open, right? Being open to just think outside of the box. I think sometimes when it comes to thinking about yourself and trying to assess your own skill sets and maybe areas that you have some skills gap, it's a little bit challenging, right? At least I know for me, I may overanalyze or take it a little bit and internalize it too much, right? So I really have to work at being open-minded to the advice that is going to be given and the guidance from my mentor. And I can ultimately decide what I do and what I don't want to partake in that advice and guidance, but I have to be open to understand it and respect it, and take it and evaluate it for myself, and use it to the best of my abilities.
I hear you. What I have not, I'm fortunate to have some mentees that I to some mentoring for the pandemic really gave me some opportunity to connect with people. One of the things that I learned by being a mentor, I'm also a mentee. I do have a mentor to help me. In my analogy here, if I am a mentor, I need to be a mentee first. I need to have that humble self-awareness, make sure that I do need to learn, and I'm also a learner. We are in it together. I'm not going to tell you what to do. So one thing that I realized that during this pandemic period, being a mentor, it's the values that what we all have to understand is that we should not be intimidated by people having 30 certification, 15 certification, many badges. You need to understand that as Ian said, you focus on a particular industry, and make sure that you learn the relevant skills, the, the relevant experience. I think that's where the mentees have to have that awareness. Oh, my colleague got 13 certifications. I need to do 16. That's not the mentee's characteristics. You should actually keep that attitude away from your basic daily learning attitude. So let's move on because we are running out of time here. We are pretty close. Now, what to look for in a mentor? I like the statement, and I want to thank Ian for that particular. So is who you want to be in 3 years, 3 to 5 years from now. Ian, if you could just highlight that first statement, that'll be really good. Because do you mean by copying somebody or just following the footstep? What do you mean by that?
We used to have this statement at Accenture, which is you need to find your ambulance in traffic. When there's an ambulance comes past you, tuck in behind them, and they are the person forging the path, and actually, so you end up taking all the shortcuts. So I think the point about who do you want to be or where do you want to be, what's the person who's living the sort of, who's got the career fulfillment that you want? And I say 3 to 5 years because there's no point going, I want to be Mark Benioff, because that's such a stretch. But you could look at someone and go, okay, that person's got the sort of career I want. Now, you can go and research that and go, is that actually what I want to go and do? because I think it's quite difficult when you say to people, where do you want to be in 3 or 5 years? And they all say to you, well, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. No. I didn't ask you what you didn't want to do. I asked what you wanted to be. And I think it's very difficult from a blank sheet for someone to say, oh, these are the skill sets. But it's a lot easier to go, oh, that person there, they are this level in this company, or they have that level of responsibility, or they are doing those sorts of roles. And you can start to pick out people who you know around the ecosystem. And I think the scariest thing is then people saying, well, in that case, just go and find that person. Let's introduce you and actually find out if they are genuinely living the life that you think they are, or whether it's actually just their Facebook life or their Twitter life. It's only the nice bits that pop up.
I now I get the point, and I also 100% agree with you on that, because you know, from the outset, when you look at this person is senior architect from a large company, I want to be an architect, but you may not even want to be an architect, because that person probably speaks well, presents well, doesn't mean that you want to do the same thing. I think the important piece here, you have to do some self contemplation, make sure that you understand what you want to do, whether you want to do the same like the other person. But what I really, one thing that I realized it being a mentor as a mentee, the mentor should be prepared to coach and challenge you. When you work with people, people are volunteering their time. You're not necessarily paying them. Even if you pay them, this is a different type of relationship. This is not somebody coming into your house and fixing your plumbing. Okay, here is, you pay $200, fix the plumbing, everything works, you're good. This is building your career, building a relationship with a mentor. So you need to ensure the mentor that you choose to work with, they are willing to challenge you, and they're willing to coach you. They want to bring the best out of your area. So then, not only that, if you have a plan, that mentor should help you stay on track. But what really intrigues me in the last point, altruistic. So, Blanca, you've been working, you've been helping people. What is if you are a mentor, if you are mentoring somebody, can you expect back something from the mentee?
I think you can expect that they are putting in the time investment, right, to make sure that they are not just wasting your time, right? That's not going to be beneficial to anyone, right? That type of relationship is not going to go anywhere, and either person is not going to get anything out of it. I think the other thing that you can expect, from your mentee is to understand that they chose you for a reason, right? You were a good match for them. You were, someone that they looked up to, or saw that you can help challenge in asking them the questions that maybe they hadn't thought to ask themselves. Maybe they're there that you feel comfortable enough to ask them, well, I see this person in this role, but I'm not exactly sure what all they do. I think they do X, Y, Z, but can you help me better understand, right? And I think having that sense of trust with your mentor is really something very important. So if you are a mentor, please know that I don't want to say you're a parent, because you're not, right? But I mean, they trust you and they look up to you. So you can expect that they're probably going to ask you a lot of questions when they're truly committed.
And true. And when you're looking for a mentor, one thing, Blanca, I've been having a mentor for the last 10 years when my professional life, even whether it's a Salesforce or non-Salesforce, I was in consulting for many years. I had a consulting firm myself. I always had a mentor. When you speak to people, you would need to connect with the person. The values that you bring and values that they bring needs to be aligned. They may like football, you may like soccer, it doesn't matter. But the value system has to align. You need to connect with them. They literally, when you are finding a mentor, when you talk to them, you will know. But and one thing that I also always recommend people, talk to multiple people. Just don't choose one, or you talk to one person, oh, I really like this person. Talk to the other person, see what the other person brings to the table. And as you said, Blanca, you're also giving back to the mentor, whatever the way you want.
Yeah.
So
I just
go
want to
ahead.
add, this concept of mentor, I think sometimes can have different time durations, right? Could be a 6 week or however month. I think that really what the goal is, and I strongly believe it, and I know Ian brought it up on one of our planning sessions for this event, is this concept of your own personal board of directors, right? These are people who are not necessarily your friends in the sense that they cheerlead you and they never point anything wrong and they don't really like challenge you. Like those are great friends, but you really need people who are in different roles that can help, guide you as a board of directors would guide an executive director or a CEO of a company, right? That's really there to provide the support and bring that extra level of expertise, um, you know, to share experiences with you and resources.
Right. I know we are very close to the time, but I want to add one more thing. This is, if you want to find a mentor, in my opinion, you volunteer your time to help people. You don't have to be a formal mentor to help people. You can just simply help them to pass a certification, help them to clarify some of the technical questions. That itself is a mentor. By doing, you be the example, you volunteer to help other people, then you will be able to find mentor. Don't, it's not about me, give me. No, you give your time first, give more time, you will find a good mentor. That's my experience. Okay, so let's move on to the next topic. So the mentoring framework. So this is something that I have, in the last 1 year, I just wanted to share with people who are watching this, a framework. As Ian said, a Salesforce is going towards the industry. You do need to know the industry that you are in, whether it's a manufacturing, financial services, or any industry that you choose. You need to have the right education. When I talk about education, not about having PhD degree from Harvard, education related to your job, whether it's a BA or whether it's a developer. It could be your certification, your badges, and your computer science degree or coding skills, and then your experience. So what I have seen in the industry, and I want to hear from you, Ian and Blanca, if you're a BA, when you join a company, they will give you a 10 list of things to do as a BA. By the time 6 months into the job, you will only do 3 or 4 things over and over. Six of the list of things that they asked you to do, you won't even remember what you said you would do. You need to make sure that you are gaining the relevant experience. And finally, when I talk about employment, especially this particular slide that I worked on creating it, employment is not about job alone. You could be an independent consultant, you could be an entrepreneur, you could be working for somebody, or you could be working for a consulting firm. It doesn't matter. Wherever you work, it is your responsibility to make sure that you are working with your organization to keep your career going. So oftentimes we all get into a job and we get stuck because we are so busy in working. So you need to take a step back and ensure that you are employed with the right compensation, right level of growth path, and right level of opportunity to move horizontally, vertically, all those things that you need to pay attention to. A lot of people don't do it. They just go there, they're very happy. All of a sudden, 3 years down the road, you think, oh man, I'm not growing. Quitting is not an option. I would not recommend, okay, I don't like this job, I quit, because Salesforce has got a lot of opportunity. You when you join an organization, make sure that you have that kind of attitude towards your employment. So now I would like Ian, 30 seconds, and Blanca, 30 seconds on this. I know we are coming on time.
I think this model is actually really interesting because it shows that there's more than one dimension. A few slides back, there was a point that said you should spend more energy on planning your career than collecting trailhead badges or certifications.
Yeah.
And I think it's very easy just to go back to the education box and go, it's really hard trying to plan what I do. I'll just do another badge because then I'll be a X times ranger. And to be honest, employers don't actually care how many times you're a ranger. You've been collecting badges. I don't really care how many badges you've got. I care how well balanced all four of these are. So if you're tons of education but little experience, no industry, and the employment doesn't work, it doesn't work. There needs to be a balance around this circle. So you need to think about how that balance comes out.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more with both of you all on that one. And the one thing that I'll add is that while yes, I do like Trailhead for certain reasons, like the best way that I learn is hands-on experience, real life use cases, real business problems that we have to solve, right? That's the best way that you learn. Being able to physically, build a computer. That's how I grew up learning how to do computer networks and building servers. And with Salesforce, it's really, having that hands-on experience to fully dive in and really comprehend the content, not just trying to check off, okay, another badge in the bag, right? Or oh, okay, another certification to put up. I think it's really about making sure that you understand the ins and outs enough so that you can readily articulate and lean in when you go to work for a nonprofit or a company or as a consultant or in any way.
I totally agree with you. And what my wife always says that have a good intention of what you want to do. The intention matters. When you go to work, okay, here is my job responsibilities. I learned something that I'm going to do. So learn first, perform, and then you excel. So if you have that intention, I think that is what matters. So now we are begin your journey. So one thing that I have noticed, I'm sure Ian and Blanca, you would agree with me, who needs mentoring framework? Not individuals alone. The companies need to take the responsibility, especially in the Salesforce world. It's a package to solution. Yeah, an admin can do a BA work. A BA can do a testing work. Sometimes the BA can do the architect work because it's a managed package. So in my opinion, individuals and the businesses, our employers, should have some kind of mentoring framework for these people so that the retention of the employees will be a lot more when you have a good mentoring framework or a career path. So I like the statement that Ian put together. It's like a vacation planning. And Ian, if I remember correctly, I heard from you that people spend more time on vacation planning than their own life planning. Or am I not saying the truth?
I think that's true. If you think about how long people spend planning vacations, they go on the internet, they talk with their partner, they spend they do it every year. They plan where they're going to go for a vacation. And how much time do they generally spend planning their career and putting that level of thought into it?
I cannot agree more on that. Meaning, it's just so important that we need to have a good plan. So the way I have been telling or working with my mentees as a volunteer, the destination is important, you decide, but the journey is more important than the destination, in my opinion. The journey has to be smooth, it has to be fun. You see the workout, what takes to get there by looking at others who got there. One thing that what really bothers me sometimes, you put a question in a community, within 30 seconds, you will get an answer. The same person would have answered million other questions. I feel like there is nothing else for that person to do other than just answer it. I think we should all think about your career, your journey should be more balanced. If you are so into Salesforce because it's so much fun, you really love what you do, but don't miss out your other journey, either personal life, social life, anything that you need to take care of the community and so on and so forth. And finally, we are right on time. So use your network for use LinkedIn, find mentors. And if you're looking for some support, certainly you can go to CRM Mentors. But I think there is each one of us have enough people in your network. Reach out to the network, talk to people, interview them, use this presentation for your reference. You can begin your journey. And I would like to thank Ian and Blanca. Before we close out, Ian, what is the word of wisdom for people aspiring to be the mentors or mentees?
I think that the couple of words that you used, there's a level of humility, there's a level of enthusiasm, and you need to be vulnerable. And you're going to get this wrong. We're going to spend a lot of time, and I have the last time since my career started. I'm always out of my depth. You need to be uncomfortable because that's where the growing happens.
Thank you, Ian. Blanca?
That's perfectly stated. And if Ian didn't say that, I would have said exactly that. But I'll just add to it that if you haven't previously been a mentor in any capacity, I mean, please consider it. Sometimes, if I think back before I started being a mentor, I would think, oh, I don't know enough. I'm not that much of an expert. I don't know that I can really do this. What would they possibly get from me? But in reality, the truth is that somebody is somewhere where you were earlier on in your journey. They are there now and you can help out. So feel free to be open to looking for a partnership to mentor somebody, because chances are you do have something to give.
Thank you. And we ran out of time. So these are the folks that 3 people that we were on this call today. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us via LinkedIn. This is our LinkedIn information. And particularly for me, don't expect me to respond back to you right away, but I will respond. So Blanca, thank you for joining. Ian, I truly appreciate joining from California, and I look forward to seeing you in our next session.
Yeah, thank you, Velu. Thank you everyone for joining.